This I think is the problem that this has brought upon us, is an absence of proper process. You see it in the Me Too movement. You know, you declare somebody to have offended the rules of the Me Too movement, that's it. You know, the condemnation is enough. And this, of course, is common in Puritan societies. The example comes to mind of the Salem witch trials, where, you know, when you delve down to find who was making the allegations, very often it was built on personal malice or some personal grudge rather than any real feeling. This is where we get to, isn't it? I think we move from a society in which, you know, we have a lawful, a process of law to determine, you know, if we are disagree with people, that's sorted out according to a certain process, to a process of, I guess, you know, tribalism, where anything goes. You can just condemn somebody and that's it.
Yeah, that's precisely right. You bring up the Salem witch trials, and I talk at length about that in my last chapter, because the belief in witches was quite common, and trials for them, while slightly rare, and severe punishments for them even rarer before 1799, 1799, 1699, whatever, I forget when they were. They were, you know, rare that happened, but they were usually magistrates would intervene in the process. They were empowered to do so, and they would mute the passions of society. And after King Philip's War and a series of existential crises for the Puritan way of life, and the nullification of the charter for Massachusetts, and the subsequent revisiting of that charter, which ended up creating sort of the proto-democratic character of what eventually became the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and then eventually the state of Massachusetts, deprived Puritanism of quite a lot of the elements that had tamped down those passions. And so, while as the ground is shifting out from under Puritanism, creating the conditions for a moral panic, the magistrates who were once empowered to intervene in these processes were no longer able to do so. So in these particular trials, you had groups of people coming in to witness them. You had these spectacles that were put on by the witnesses, and a lot of passion involved in the demands for some bloodshed. And you would usually, in the time before, you would have institutions that were empowered to intervene in this process, and no one was. So what you had was mob rule. And what we see quite a lot today is moral panics fueled by crowd passions of sort of lizard-brained mob. There is only one mob in history. They are all very similar in their character. And one of the aspects of this philosophy is that it embraces the extrajudicial and collective punishment in ways that a classically liberal society organized around the rule of law simply cannot abide, which is part of the reason why they have such frustration for the rule of law, with its evidentiary standards and its meting out of justice on an individual level. That's the sort of thing that is wholly unequal to the task before us in the eyes of a social justice advocate who believes in collective justice and collective punishment, and the empowerment of beneficent institutions to redistribute both economic and social goods to groups, to take some away from empowered groups and to give them to disempowered groups based on their subjective assessment. None of that is possible in a constitutional government in a liberal society, which is part of the reason why they have such frustrations with constitutional governments and liberal societies. And that's another facet of their vestigial Puritanism that is coming to the fore.